We are back. Missed on Points Podcast. We've been out for a little bit. Eric and I were both judging and coaching at the CETA National Debate Tournament, and we're not completely recovered, so who knows what we'll say on tonight's podcast. But while we were out, were there a couple of things that happened in the world of sports, Eric? I'm not sure. Were there any stories?
Here's what I learned. I learned that Norman, Oklahoma surprisingly has tasty food.
It does.
It is better than Athens, Georgia.
Probably true.
And I think that's all that really matters. I didn't see Brian Bosworth, so I was a little disappointed.
Yeah, they need to have some kind of tourist thing going on. But there were a few stories while we were gone. In fact, there were so many that it's unlikely we can do justice to all of them, so we're going to try to go through them and get to the high points and get to things that we think are different takes on the events or at least discussions of them.
Oh, yeah, Tebow spoke. We should probably start with Tebow.
Let's start with Tim Tebow.
Yeah. So Tim Tebow had his press conference. It's the first time in history that an NFL backup quarterback had a 40-minute press conference followed by a 10-minute one-on-one interview with ESPN. Tebow, as usual, said all the right things, said he's happy to be here, said he's very thankful for the chance and the Broncos and blah, 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 blah. You know, there were a myriad of tweets. The funniest one was Doug Stewart saying Chris Redman never had an interview. To me, Tim Tebow will be the starting quarterback by the fourth game. It's Mark Sanchez, for Christ's sake. And Tebow knows this.
Yeah, well, Tim Tebow's, look, he's probably a decent guy, and he's not stupid. Say what you want about Tebow. He understands how to deal with press. He's been involved with press a lot. Mm-hmm. So he would be a fool to say anything other than that he supported Sanchez and he was just there to make the team better in every way he could. But he could easily be the starting quarterback at some point during the season. I don't know. I don't know about the fourth game, like you say, but I remember when this first happened, there were all these people who said, well, the fans in New York won't embrace Tebow like the fans in Colorado. Are you insane? Do you not understand what New York fans are like? You know, they're the most fickle and vocal fans in the world, and they don't like Sanchez. Why would they not embrace Tebow?
He's the second, what's the word I'm looking for? He's the second string quarterback for the New York Football Jets. As soon as Sanchez misses a third down pass, they will be screaming for Tim Tebow.
It'll happen before that. Well, first of all, they're screaming for Tebow now. I remember the ESPN did a poll on the day that the trade was announced. This was before they had even talked about the difficulty with whether or not the Jets were going to pay the money the Broncos wanted them to pay. It was the day it was announced. ESPN did an instant poll, and 50% of Jets fans were already wanting him to start. Yeah, this is going to be a media firestorm the whole season. Mark Sanchez does not appear to be the most self-confident guy.
No.
They're definitely going to put Tebow in for 10 to 12 snaps at least. If you're going to run the Wildcat, that's what's going to happen. This is not good for Jets fans at all.
I've heard a lot of people talk about Tebow, going to the Jacksonville Jaguars as his home state, blah, 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 blah. But I think what I ultimately kind of feel is Tebow's not going to get the kind of exposure he wants. New York is a media hub. We all know this. You can get lost in Jacksonville, even if he performs admirably. Listen, if he does what he did in Denver, in New York, he'll become like a global icon almost. Like, we still talk about Joe Namath as if he was a great quarterback all time. He won a Super Bowl. That's it. He's not that good. But everything kind of gets overstated a little bit. Sanchez is in trouble. I don't know what his contract looks like, but I would not be shocked if he isn't benched before the middle point of the season.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me either. And everyone should remember, listen to that press conference. Tebow is very conscious of the importance of what he is doing that is not football. And, he talks about how that's more important, how his charitable work is more important, how his life mission is more important. If you want to read my full thoughts on this question, you should go to thepermutation.com. I've got an article back during Tebow Mania about how Tebow is participating in his own transformation into a symbol for something larger. New York is a great stage for that. They asked him where he wanted to go during this whole scandal with whether the Jets were really going to pay the money, and it appeared like they had a choice at that point whether they were going to trade him to the Jets or the Jaguars, and Tebow said the Jets, which shows you two things. One is that he understands football. He has a much better chance to win with the Jets than he does with the Jaguars.
Absolutely.
And secondly, he understands that New York's a bigger stage for him. This is not a guy who doesn't know what he's getting into. This is a guy who knows exactly what he's getting into, and he's getting into it at a place that is very, very ready to get Tebow Mania. Look at Linsanity. And Lynn only won a few games at the beginning for them. Tebow has a record of taking a bad team and making it good.
Hey, that's a good point. Remind me to talk about Linsanity later.
We'll get to the NBA in a minute. But yeah, this is not, this is a mess for the Jets. It's a mess for Sanchez.
No, this is only a mess for one person.
Sanchez?
Sanchez. When Rex Ryan saw Tebow go 95 yards on his defense in Denver, and then scored a game-winning running touchdown. He wants to run the football. This is, if you could think of the perfect place of, let's run the Wildcat, run the football, throw 15 times a game, have a defense that really can be a defense that can carry you. You have that in the New York. No other team is built to run the Wildcat and play that style of football than the Jets. I agree with you 100%. Tebow knows football, I think, a lot better than a lot of people are not giving him credit for. This is a brilliant move for Tebow. And I'm telling you, the Jets will compete for a playoff spot, and the quarterback will be Tim Tebow, who leads them there.
Well, they were going to compete for a playoff spot anyway. Look, this is why I say it's a mess. If they decide Tebow is the starter, then that reduces the mess factor a lot in the short term. In the long term, it'll just depend on how well he does, right? But in between now and any time in the future where they make that decision, it's a mess, because they're going to have to sit there and pretend like they're backing Mark Sanchez, and we all know they're not. They're all going to pretend like this is some sort of vote of confidence for Sanchez, and it's not. It's a mess for him, and the longer that maybe he'll flourish. Maybe this pressure will make him better. I don't believe it. If that doesn't happen, then it's a mess for the franchise as long as they're going to pretend to back Sanchez when they're not really backing him.
I think the only hope Sanchez has is to somehow, grow a sack of you-know-what and, respond to this. Because if you can't be an idiot if you're Sanchez and be like, well, this is really going to help the team and I'm going to be a better quarterback. No, dude, they don't want you to be the quarterback. And, Mark Sanchez, listen, if you were picking starting quarterbacks who would be behind Tim Tebow, that list would include Mark Sanchez along with Matt Ryan.
Oh, stop with the Matt Ryan. But at the very least, you could say, look, you've got a much better argument for Sanchez than Ryan. But let me say one more thing before we finish this topic. This is a statistic that Scott Van Pelt first pointed out, or at least that's where I found it the first time. Tebow and Sanchez had the same number of rushing touchdowns last year, which is 6. I'm not trying to compare the two of them, but it's not like Sanchez wasn't rushing the ball as a quarterback effectively, and that's got to eat at him. I'm going to love watching this because I'm not a fan of the Jets, but don't act like this isn't a problem until they make that change.
I'm going to disagree with that stat because I think it glosses over something. It kind of overrates the 6 touchdowns that Sanchez had, and not really the kind of rushing that Tebow does. Tebow's a better runner. There's no question about that. Of course. So when I hear that kind of a stat, I kind of think to myself, this isn't one of those things where that fits. I think when I look at Mark Sanchez, I don't know anything he does well.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When I look at Tim Tebow, I know he's going to play for me in the fourth quarter. I know he's going to have a lot of passion. Probably next to Michael Vick, maybe the best Cam Newton, maybe the third best running quarterback in the league. So there's some escapability there. And He's a big boy. He's tough to bring down.
And I can
I
tell
like
you,
this for the Jets.
yeah. And then one other thing he's going to do is throw a lot of incompletions. Like
Sure.
let's not gloss that part over too. Anyway, this is going to be fascinating. The football gods could have done nothing better for us as fans than this kind of thing, because it's going to be just a beautiful mess to watch.
It will be fun. But the reason that Tim Tebow was traded, he was traded because Peyton Manning signed with the Denver Broncos. And if you're Peyton Manning, why did you sign with the Broncos?
Yeah, I have to admit I'm confused about this, and in fact I'm doubly confused because of how much money Manning got. The argument I've heard from so many people is that the Broncos had the most cap room. If you're Peyton Manning, is that really your priority? I mean, obviously it is, because you took an enormous contract that's got to damage the Broncos' ability to sign free agents that'll help you win. Is that really your priority?
I'm gonna be honest with you. Peyton has done this a couple of times now where, he signed a mega deal. And remember, Indianapolis kind of hamstrung them a little bit to sign, good defensive players. This boggles my mind. There's nothing in Denver. They don't have a real running game because their running game was partially Tebow. They've got an old defense. They do have a couple of young guys on defense, but that secondary is not very good. John Elway's not coming out of retirement to play receiver. I'm really lost by this one because I thought Arizona would have been a better fit. Miami's a better fit. The Jets are a better fit.
I don't know about Miami. I think Arizona was a better fit. The 49ers, who were there at the end, were a better fit.
Yeah, but the 49ers didn't really have the money.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the argument I hear, but that's the argument that I'm really confused by. Because if you're Peyton Manning, you don't need that much money. You need rings. You don't need. Look, he has enough money. Turn on the television. Peyton Manning has never made a commercial that he said no to. He has plenty of money. Do you really need? Is your ego so huge that you have to be the highest paid player in the league when clearly your priority at this point, because you've only got a few years left, ought to be, if you're a real competitor, win a ring. And look, I'll admit the Broncos' defense is good. It's not great. It's certainly not as good as the 49ers.
Sure.
And I'll admit that, the Broncos' running game may be good. I agree that Tebow definitely inflated their stats, but everybody knew they were going to run the ball. They've got some running ability. Who are their receivers?
Well, you've got Demaryius Thomas. A lot of people are kind of high on him. He's a young guy. But no, I agree with you.
I just don't get it.
Reggie Wayne was going to go. Reggie stayed in Indy.
Yeah.
Jeff Saturday, I think, went to Green Bay. I'm really confused. Like, there's not a lot of things that I get confused by. This one baffles me because, I know you say that Miami's not a better job than.
Who are their receivers?
Well, they had Brandon Marshall.
So, yeah, but they had given him away by the time.
Yeah, that's true.
They had given him away, and Reggie Wayne had re-signed with the Colts before this all went down. I mean, I'm confused. I'm really confused by this. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to be fascinated to watch the first 2 or 3 games the Broncos play in this year, because I want to see what happens if Peyton Manning can't. Well, the one thing that's good about the Broncos is it's not going to be hard to get into the playoffs in their division.
No,
but I mean, the Broncos got in with a shoddy record last year. But if you don't have the weapons, it doesn't help to get into the playoffs easily.
No,
I don't get it.
No, I don't get it either. There are definitely better teams out there, but hey, you know what? I will say this about Peyton Manning. I think the fact that he doesn't have very long to play, I think he wants to get one last big contract and be out. I mean, now, maybe, and hear me out. You take the money in this instance because let's say he goes to another team and doesn't win another championship. How much does that hurt his legacy? Not much. If he wins another Super Bowl, how much does that change his legacy? Not much. A lot of people kind of think of him already as a top 5, 7 quarterback all time. I think he really just wanted to. I think he wanted cash, and that's the only explanation.
You may be right about that. If you are, I'm really disappointed. But I'll disagree with the second part of what you said. You're right that if he goes someplace and he doesn't win a Super Bowl, it doesn't really tarnish his legacy that much. But if he goes someplace else and he wins another Super Bowl, that really cements his legacy. How many quarterbacks have done that? Not very many.
But if he wins
Montana didn't do that.
No, Montana didn't do that. But would he be above Montana all time?
He's already Peyton Manning is already probably close to Montana in the regular season. What he can't hold a candle to Montana on is postseason play and number of rings. Now, admittedly, Montana was playing in a different era when you could really have a huge franchise like you can't have now, and
Sure.
Montana was playing for a team that was stocked offensively, which Manning hasn't really been playing for a team that was that way. But if he wants legacy, he's got to win Super Bowls, and I really feel like he's got to be aware of that. If this is just a cash grab, and maybe he feels good about hanging out with John Elway because he likes him, man, I'm just really disappointed by this whole thing.
I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I don't know. Like, I just feel like if he wins another ring, like, I haven't thought about who my top 5 quarterbacks are all time, but I don't know how much he would rate. How much higher he would get if he won 2 more. Then that's different.
Look, come on now. If he wins at Denver, here we are, both of us saying we cannot understand this move because the Broncos don't seem to have nearly enough to win with him. If he goes to Denver and he wins a Super Bowl, that's got to be proof that he's the magic ingredient, right?
No. He's the magic ingredient, but I'm not sure. Does it put him over what Brady has done? Does it put him over what Montana's done? Does it put him over? I'm probably forgetting a quarterback right now. I don't know. He maybe he's third. I don't know if he goes to second or first. Like, I think that's my argument. My argument is if he's like the third best all-time quarterback and he doesn't win a ring, he probably stays there. Maybe his brother can catch him. Maybe Rodgers can catch him. But he's still a top 5 quarterback. If he wins another one, it just means that it's harder for those guys to catch him.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he gets ahead of Montana.
And I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea how much he thinks about his legacy. But I can tell you that as a fan, I want to see great football. And if his motivation is just cash, that reduces the chance I'm going to see great football. And that's all that matters to me as a fan. And, his legacy is something he can think about. The only reason I even talk about that is I'm trying to figure out what's in his head.
Sure.
And Peyton Manning has forgotten more than either of us will ever know about football. He's a smart guy.
Well,
I don't get this.
Speak for yourself. I played high school football.
All right.
So, next topic. For some reason, you want to talk about the NCAA tournament. Go.
Well, the reason Eric doesn't want to talk about the NCAA tournament is that, I'm kind of crushing him. And look, we've both been wrong about a lot. In fact, we were wrong about a lot of the same things. We were wrong about Missouri. We were both wrong about Syracuse. I was extra wrong because I filled out my bracket before it turns out that Mello wasn't going to be able to play for them. Mm-hmm. We were wrong the last time we did our mini-cast on whether or not Florida would go a long way. Mm-hmm. I was wrong about whether or not UNC would make it this far. But ultimately, I have Kansas and Kentucky in the championship game, which means I'm going to win. I don't know that I feel that great about it. Let me say just a couple quick things about what's been happening, and then we can talk about the Final Four. If you listen to the last minicast, which you can still get on MissedOnPoints.com,
college boy.
If you listen to that, there was exclusive statistical analysis that I did that indicated that years when there are a lot of upsets early in the tournament do not always produce Cinderellas late in the tournament. And in fact, that is exactly what has happened this year. Mm-hmm. This year tied for the second most upsets in the first round since 2000. And here we are in the Final Four with 0 teams seeded higher than 4. So as much as this year seemed like, wow, it's a crazy bracket-busting year, we are once again in a situation where we've got no team seeded higher than 4. And at the end of the day, I don't know what that means. In fact, I was sitting around at dinner tonight with my wife kind of trying to explain to her what I felt that meant, and I had to conclude it just means there's not a lot of pattern in the way that the brackets play out based on what happens in the first round. And so here we are. So let me ask you a couple of questions, Eric, unless you've got something else you want to say about this whole process.
I think what it means is that there's only one dominant team. I think we're going to talk about this in a second. But in an era where there's kind of like one clear-cut team that's above everyone and a lot of parity, and like you said in the other podcast, matchups, I think ultimately what ends up happening is that you get kind of what we've seen, which is upsets early, and then it just kind of fall into form. If you notice, I don't think there was an upset per se in the Elite Eight, with the exception of Kansas versus Carolina. And Carolina was without its starting point guard, who broke his wrist.
And that wasn't really much of an upset, given that a lot of people felt like Kansas should have been a 1 seed in the first place.
Exactly.
I mean, Kansas was the 5th 1 seed this year.
They were.
And at the time, I felt that they really got slighted in that sense not because I thought they were so great, but because I thought North Carolina wasn't. Clearly, North Carolina was better than I thought. But here's I've got a couple of questions. My first question is...
Whoa. Is this rapid fire?
Okay, sure. Do we want to bring the rapid fire noise?
Really? You're just going to sneak in on me with a rapid fire?
Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. No, it's fine.
We have a thing we have to do.
No, I'm a little upset about this.
All right. Are you going to play the sounder?
No. You wait your turn.
All right, hold on.
No, you
Are
wait
you going to play the sounder or not?
Oh, it's coming. Rapid fire.
I don't know why that's so funny. Most of the people listening to the podcast right now are like, it's not. Anyway, here are my rapid fire questions for you. Last year was a big Cinderella year. Tied for the most seeds above 4 in the Final Four ever, or at least since 2000. This year, we got a 1 versus a 4 and a 2 versus a 2. Are you more excited for this year than you were for last year?
No. Last year was more interesting because it had VCU and Butler, and it had that Cinderella feel to it. I'm not gonna lie, the way Kentucky is playing, it makes it just kind of like you're waiting for them to go ahead and raise the banner in Kentucky's name. They are the best team far and away above any of the other teams in the Final Four. I think they won't throttle Louisville because it's a rivalry game, but it'll be clear. And then they will play probably Kansas, and they will throttle Kansas. God forbid if they play Ohio State, because Ohio State ain't ready for this. So that's why I'm not excited.
Let me skip around. I think I may be more excited than I was last year, but let me skip ahead and ask you a question since you say this. Are you sure, given the way that Kentucky has played on the whole during this tournament, that you're not giving Kentucky too much credit for the last game they played? Are you, excuse me, catchphrase, cliche coming, a prisoner of the moment?
No. But you also have to understand, I had Baylor beating Kentucky. So I was very high on Baylor, and they ran them out of the gym. And it's kind of one of those things where, to use a boxing analogy, if I'll give a little bit of historical presence. Before Roy Jones, who was probably the greatest fighter I've ever seen in my lifetime, he was fighting someone named James Toney. When I say Roy Jones, I'm 33. I only know boxing for about 25 years. Roy Jones would beat the shit out of Ray Leonard. There, I said it. But Roy Jones was about to fight James Toney, and James Toney, everyone thought was a monster. People kind of knew Roy Jones. Roy Jones annihilated James Toney, and everyone went, ooh. When what I saw Kentucky do to Baylor made me go, ooh. And I feel like maybe I've undervalued Kentucky. I understand everyone wants to get on the Louisville bandwagon because Louisville is doing the Connecticut thing, running through the Big East tournament, win the tournament, run through the Final Four. But Kentucky didn't have to. UConn didn't have to play this type of team. No. I am not a prisoner of the moment. This Kentucky team is deep. It's good.
Oh, it's not deep. Wait. It is not deep. They play 6 guys.
That's the deepest 6 guys I've ever seen in my life. Look,
nice recovery. Well played.
It reminds me of the UNLV teams where they had all that NBA talent. They played like 7 guys. They look deeper, or they feel deeper than what they maybe truly are.
Yeah, I mean, Syracuse was clearly really deep. In fact, a lot deeper than I thought they were, than I gave them credit for being. But Kentucky's really good. All right, well, since I think I may be more excited, and then let me ask you a couple of questions about the 2 games we've got coming up. A lot of people, and I think we already know your answer to this question, but a lot of people seem to be giving the Louisville Cardinals a lot of credit, a lot of possibility for winning this game because it's Pitino versus Calipari. I heard several times over the course of the weekend, once this matchup came up, that Pitino can outcoach Calipari, and that since Kentucky isn't a very deep team, that Louisville has a really strong shot to beat Kentucky. My question is, do they?
Sure, it's a rivalry game. These kids aren't afraid of Kentucky. And they've seen Kentucky a bunch because they're in the same state. Some of these kids play together on AAU teams. No, they're not afraid of them. Yeah, they can win. They've got a good point guard, and they play very rugged defense. If they could get Kentucky in foul trouble, and as you say, Kentucky is not, deep. Sure, they could maybe hold off and win the game. I just think, Kid Gilchrist and Anthony Davis and I think it's Lamb, the point guard, and a couple of other guys. There's too much talent there. I think ultimately the final score seemed wider than what the game is, but I like the guys in Vegas has it 9 points right now. I think 9 points is spot on.
Fair enough. Let me ask about the other game. So who are you calling to win that game?
I got Kentucky by 9.
All right. The other game is 2 seeds, but I'll tell you what. My first question about that game is, it's Kansas at a 2 seed, Ohio State at a 2 seed. Does that feel like an even matchup to you?
No, but I'm very low on Ohio State. I thought Ohio State played in the weakest region, and it got weaker because Fab Melo was ruled ineligible. No, Ohio State has an easy run to the Final Four. I think, again, Kansas has better talent. They have better NBA talent. I forget the kid's name that plays for Ohio State that everyone's in love with, but I don't think he's very talented. I think he's an oversized 4. I think Kentucky wins that game handily.
You mean Kansas?
Kansas, thank you.
Yeah, for my money, and I know that Louisville's the lower-ranked team, but for my money, Ohio State feels like the Cinderella in this Final Four to me, both in the sense that there's not much about them that's associated with traditional basketball powerhouses, and the fact that they don't have Pitino. Admittedly, their coach is more famous than a lot of coaches in that sense, but sure. Kansas seemed underranked to me or underseeded in the tournament, and Ohio State seemed overseeded to me, so it feels like a bigger gap. I'm actually picking the exact same way on both games as you. I think Kentucky wins. Yep. I think Kansas wins. I think if either of the two games is going to be real close, it's going to be Kentucky-Louisville because of familiarity and because of the fact that Pitino hates Calipari, apparently. And honestly, who doesn't hate Calipari unless you're a diehard Wildcat fan? And even then, you don't like him too much. You're happy that he's there. He's the Danny Ainge of coaches. You hate him, but you're happy he's on your team instead of somebody else's. All right. So, yeah, I kind of feel like that's where that is. So, then let's call it now. My final question on Rapid Fire is, if Kansas and Kentucky both win, who wins the championship game?
Kentucky, not close.
I agree with you. I think if Kansas makes it, it'll be Kentucky, and it won't be...
It'll be a better game if Kansas makes it.
Yeah. I think Kentucky versus Ohio State is a blowout.
Yeah.
So hopefully, for the sake of good basketball, we'll see Kentucky-Kansas. And honestly, I think that will be a higher-rated championship game considerably than last year's was, because you've got two teams that are associated with great traditions in basketball. And unlike football, it almost doesn't matter what size of a city your team comes from, what region they come from, if they've got that tradition associated with them. All right, that is the end of...
Oh, wait. I had to play the intro?
Got to work on it.
I got to play it again?
Yes.
Oh, you love it, don't you? Yes. Don't start a fire!
All right, next topic.
We should talk about the Saints getting leveled by Goodell. Goodell said, "Don't you lie to me, boy." And they lied, and they got punished.
Yeah, can I just say something about that real quick?
You want to say something about it?
No, well, I really...
Say something about
it. We had a long discussion about this before it happened, where both of us kind of took our good friend Steve Hero, friend of the show, shout out Steve, we took him to task for not thinking that the bounty system was a big deal. But having spent some time looking at what's going on with Goodell and the Saints and the way that this has all gone down, I really feel like the one thing that hasn't gotten talked about enough is that this is not about the bounty system. It's a little bit about liability and player safety, but at the end of the day, if you want to sit there and understand why the fees were so heavy, why the suspensions were so extensive, and why we haven't seen the end of the punishments, it's a question of obedience. It's not a question of player safety. It's not a question of Goodell trying to exert his power, except that they told all the teams to stop doing this, and the Saints told them they weren't doing it, and they lied, and Goodell is not about to have disobedience. This is a question of obedience more than it is player safety or anything else.
So let me ask you a question. You think that if... Well, no. Because it's different than the Michael Vick one in the sense that it kind of just came out. Goodell asked Vick. Vick said, I didn't do it. Which, he's probably instructed by his attorneys to say. Then Goodell punishes him. This is Goodell saying, okay, I know you were doing it. Don't do it again. And the Saints says, we're not. So they were kind of warned twice.
Yep.
They knew about it once, told them to stop. Then when they went ahead and did it anyway, there isn't an answer to say, oh, I didn't know. Like Sean Payton's argument was, I didn't know anything about this. Well, if Goodell told you not to do it and you went ahead and did it, I totally agree. This sends a very, very strong message about lying to Officer Goodell. And normally I'm not on Goodell's side. But this is the one time where I thought he did the right thing. Because I feel like if you're going to hold players to this kind of a standard, then you need to hold teams to this kind of a standard. And the Saints got throttled. I will be surprised. Now, this will change based on what we're about to talk about in a second. If the Saints have a winning record next year. Because not only do they lose Peyton, they lose the guy who would be the interim head coach because he's out for 6 games. And the GM, I think, is out for 6 or 8 weeks. So the Saints are in trouble.
Yeah, and look, when the players in the past have gotten fined, have gotten suspended, there's been a lot of complaint by people that don't like Goodell that Goodell treats the players unfairly. This is clear indication that Goodell is harsh on everyone. And you can't have teams disobeying you. If you're the commissioner, your word has to be law. That's your job. That is what the players signed up for in the CBA. That is what the owners signed up for in the CBA. You can't have teams not only telling you they're not doing something and then doing it, but doing it in an incredibly organized and extensive way, including large sums of money. It's a huge problem, and Goodell's got to say enough is enough. And I don't have a problem with what he did. I don't understand why everybody is so freaked out about it. The only thing about this now that's even interesting to me at the least is what's going to happen to some of the players that were involved. And is Jeremy Shockey going to get in trouble for this? I don't like Shockey, but I'm kind of on his side with this Warren Sapp nonsense. As much as I don't like Shockey, I like Sapp less, even though Sapp was a much better player. But yeah, to me, this is not a big deal. They broke the law. At least the analog of the law in the NFL, and they lied about it. And they were warned to stop breaking the law. They did it again. They lied about doing it. This is over.
I agree.
And Drew Brees, and just as we're about to get into Drew Brees, but Drew Brees, shut up. What do you mean you're mystified by this? Have you not been paying attention?
I'm not going to lie. Everyone in the Saints right now looks really bad, and a lot of the glow and the glitz from their Super Bowl run, I think, is taking a hit. Because not only are they saying stuff like, oh, I don't understand why we got penalized so hard, or I didn't know about it. It kind of tarnishes the whole title. Now, true Saint fans don't care. They got a ring. But, it didn't have that same feel-good story to it. You know what I mean?
And they can only use Katrina for so long.
Yes.
Look, and I'm going to speak here as a fan who has some experience with this kind of thing. When it first happens to you, when the league first comes down on your team or one of your players, and I speak here as an Atlanta Falcon fan who went through the whole Mike Vick thing, your first reaction is to be upset with the league because you're upset you're not going to have that star player, you're upset you're not going to have your coach or your draft picks or whatever, but eventually you will come to realize that it wasn't the league that screwed you. It was the people who got themselves in trouble by doing something stupid. And
Absolutely.
almost all the fans in Atlanta who have any sense have come around to the fact that Michael Vick screwed us. And it wasn't even so much by the dogfighting thing, it was that he was not working on football. Eventually the Saints fans are going to come around and realize that it was not Roger Goodell that screwed them. It was Peyton and the defensive coordinator and the general manager. And I was not unhappy as a Falcon fan on that first game after Katrina when we got our ass kicked. I was not unhappy because you've got to feel for the city of New Orleans in that circumstance. And even though we had to take one for the team, I wasn't unhappy about it. And I'm not a Saints hater, but I'm telling you, Saints fans, it will happen soon. You will realize that it's not the league, it's your team, and they're going to be upset about that. And then this whole, oh, poor pitiful us because we've got Katrina. This is not the league screwing you. This is your own team doing it, and that's got to be even more upsetting because the Saints are all they have in that area as far as sports goes.
Here's my thought. I actually was I have a different take on the whole Katrina thing. I don't think that because of Katrina, like that spills over into people should kind of like, oh, well, we lost to a team from New Orleans, man. They had Katrina, they really needed it. I don't really care about that. I think that, Katrina has its own place in my consciousness, and sports has a place in my consciousness. And frankly, I wanted the Falcons to go in there and make them cry. I don't care. But
if it had been Tampa Bay, I would be with you. I hate the Bucks, but
no, I hate the Saints more. But when it comes to Katrina, I wanted them from a humanitarian standpoint to get back to their normal lives. Their normal lives has nothing to do with football, but that's another subject.
Yeah,
this is really something that I'm really upset about, and I don't think this is being talked about enough. So let me rant. Sean Payton apparently went to the owners' meetings, and there's a report on ESPN.com. You can check it out, ESPN.com, that says that Payton reached out to Parcells to be an interim coach for the year. Now, I have a severe problem with this. Number one, I don't think that any of the suspended parties involved should be at the owners' meeting conducting business on behalf of the team. Number two, there's something fishy about the fact of a suspended head coach, a disgraced head coach and general manager going to try to recruit another coach to run their team in their absence. And there's something, this team has already violated trust issues. I wouldn't be surprised if Sean Payton isn't sending a couple of texts here and there saying, hey, you should probably run this play, you should do this play, you should do this play. I don't think they should be a part of it at all. If Parcells became an interim coach, because someone else did it or something, I might be okay with it. But this really reeks. And, it's like you got punished, but yet you still have the ability to go out and get like a Hall of Fame head coach. When the Falcons got punished, we did not have the ability to go out and get a Hall of Fame quarterback to replace Vic until he came back. So I have a bit of a problem with that.
Well, I can tell you what I think about that, and I don't know that I have as much of a personal problem with it as you, but it looks bad. It's a public relations misstep. If you're Bill Parcells, you can now not say yes, because it has been reported that Sean Payton came to you. If the owner came to you, that would be a different circumstance. The owner is the one person in this who appears like he was not involved. Like he said, stop it. They said, we have stopped it. He was misinformed. So the owner can reach out to Parcells. But if Payton reaches out to you, then it's like you said, it's the criminal, for all practical purposes, reaching out to try to say, hey, I'm going to have to do my time while I'm in prison. Can you come run my business for me? Right. Or not so much my business, but can you come take my job at the Home Depot I was doing and do it for me? And now you'll be tarred by association with Sean Payton. I think if you really wanted Parcells to come, then it's a bad move by you, Sean Payton, to let that information out into the public.
I personally think that, and I feel like Goodell needs to probably step in. Again, I know their suspension don't officially start until the 1st, but I think Goodell needs to make it very clear that, you guys should not be a part of the business of, filling out the staff.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question, because several podcasts ago, I just gotten back from Miami, and I was unaware that Drew Brees had been franchised, and I said, is this the end of Drew Brees in New Orleans? And you said, well, he'd been franchised, and I thought that was kind of the end of it. But it's definitely not, as things turn out. Brees has not signed the franchise contract. It has been widely reported that he and management are still quite far apart on the question of his payment. And now it appears he won't sign the franchise contract. That's what's being reported. And if you're Drew Brees, do you really want to stay with this team? And my question for you is, are we going to see Drew Brees with another team next year?
No. The problem is that this is the way the franchise tag works. Regardless of if you sign the franchise tag, you have been franchised. The contract simply means that you haven't signed a contract saying that you will play for that amount of money for that year. So Brees can't go anywhere, just like Brent Grimes can't go anywhere and sign with another team.
Yeah, that's not my question. Let me play this scenario out for you, and you tell me what you think.
Okay.
Because this is what will happen if this is how it goes. Brees will not sign the franchise tag, and let's suppose that he and the Saints come to an impasse, right? Which they may already be at. And Brees says, look, if you don't sign me to the kind of contract I want, here's what I will do tomorrow. Tomorrow, I will come out in public and I will say two things. I will say, I'm not going to sign the franchise tag. I will not allow myself to be tarred by the misdeeds of this team. They are not willing to put their confidence in me. They have voted for the people who were at fault in this rather than the people who were innocent in it. And I won't get to go anywhere next year, but I would rather retire and keep my dignity than stay here as a Saint and be tarred by the scandal of what has happened, because this franchise clearly doesn't care. Or he could either do that, that's the real hardball move, or he could say, look, tomorrow I will come out and say I have been franchised by the Saints, I will play my year out of my contract, and then that will be it. I can guarantee you I will not come back to this franchise because this franchise is headed in the wrong direction, and they do not care about the long term, as is evidenced by their failure to sign my contract. In both of those circumstances, the Saints get screwed in one case this year, in another case next year, and they look terrible in public. The fan base in New Orleans loves Drew Brees. What do they have? If he leaves, what do they have left to hang their hat on?
They'll go back to the bags. I think the second scenario is more likely. I think one scenario is that Brees holds out.
Right.
And he says, I'm not signing the contract, I'm not signing the contract. And he holds out, which is detrimental because realistically, he's the only coach on the team that can run that offense.
That is correct.
I think that scenario is very plausible because if you're Brees' agent, you're going to the Saints and saying, you guys are in a lot of trouble, a lot of bad PR.
I mean,
pay for my quarterback.
Bill Polian wrote an article on ESPN with this exact same argument. He's calling for them to sign Brees. Brees has all the leverage in the world. Even if he plays out his franchise year and he leaves, that wrecks the team.
Yeah, the Saints are in trouble, and it's shocking that this team that had a lot of problems with the coach and the quarterback and the weapons, they're going down, and they're going down fast. And I don't know of another team that may, be dismantled like literally before our eyes. I would not be surprised if Drew Brees is not on the Saints roster next year.
By next year, do you mean this coming year or the one after that?
The one after.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, I would be somewhat surprised if he's not on this year, but I wouldn't be shocked. I could, as much as I think at the end of the day, you're probably right. Either they'll get the contract done or he'll just play out his franchise year because they're only thinking in the short term. I would not be surprised to see a draft day trade. I would not be surprised to see them try to market him. If you're the Miami Dolphins, how excited would you be to get Drew Brees?
Well, they almost had him once before, but because of the injury, they weren't too sure.
Yeah, that was their fault, but they could get a second bite at the apple. I mean, I'll admit I don't think it's that likely, but man, they are not doing a good job dealing with this.
No. You know who is doing a good job right now, though?
Who's that?
Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods is. Oh, by the way, before we leave the Saints topic, I just want to say, good luck, Mr. Lofton. Good luck with the Saints. You're not going to have a lot of fans in Atlanta anymore. Not only did you leave us, you left us for the freaking Saints.
Who is he?
I think he might have played. Did he play for the Falcons at one point?
I don't know who you're talking about. Moving on.
Yeah, have a good time with your house in Atlanta. Have a good time with all those people that liked you. Look, you're a free agent. Go where you want. You went to the Saints? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
No. Yeah, I don't like you anymore.
Wow. Have a good time with that.
However, I will say in Curtis Lawson's case, if you believe you are a 3-down linebacker and the Falcons are refusing to pay with such, you have every right to go to your arch rival.
Yeah, if they were the only bidder, whatever. I don't think they were the only bidder. That's just, we didn't have any loyalty to him. And the Falcons' complete inability to do anything in the offseason, that'll be a topic for a future podcast. But yes. Next topic.
Tiger Woods, y'all.
He won the Arnold Palmer Invitational again.
And he looked good. He looked like the old Tiger doing it.
I heard
a lot of people, I heard Skip Bayless talk about, oh, by the way, fuck Skip Bayless. I heard Skip Bayless talking about how he looked a little nervous. And of course he would. I mean, if you haven't won in 30 months, you might be a little, when it came to making putts. But it's Tiger Woods. He wins a tournament before Augusta. He now knows he can go down on a back nine of a tournament with the lead and win a tournament. That's something he couldn't do in 2010 when he had the lead on the 10th hole at Augusta. He was just kind of recovering. So, two questions here. I was clearly wrong. Tiger appears to have a little bit left in the tank. Is he your favorite? Are you taking Tiger or are you taking the field at Augusta?
I would take the field. If you're asking me which golfer is the most likely to win, I might still go with Tiger. But the field is a better bet at Augusta. But I will say this. Not only did Tiger win, and not only did he demonstrate that he can close, which used to be his strength and recently has been his weakness, but he looked fit. Tiger looked more physically fit than I have seen him in a long time. And if for somebody whose physical problems have been a big concern lately, that's got to be a big confidence booster going into Augusta. He looked fit. He was close to the top for greens in regulation. He's driving the ball a really long way, which is a huge benefit in Augusta. He destroyed the par fives. You've got to feel like I don't know that you take him over the field, but he's got to be the favorite.
We'll say this. Rory was not playing, and I think that was kind of the only big name you could think of who was kind of not playing that you really care about. Generally, I want to take the field, but something tells me that everyone's kind of been saying this who's involved in golf. Tiger's just waiting until it all comes together. He's waiting. It's coming. And if he's about to go on a run, we're going to see that this Masters. I'm like 51-49 the Phil versus Tiger, and that's getting close to being 50-50.
Yeah, and it's look, I'll say one thing about the way this has been covered in the last couple of days. I am sick of sportscasters making up dumb questions in order to try to drive conversation. And the dumbest question you can ask is Tiger all the way back to where he was when he was great? That's a stupid question. We don't have enough data to answer that question. We've seen him win a tournament. Of course he's not where he was when he was winning all those titles, and he was always winning, and he was winning a record number of golf tournaments regardless of whether they were majors. That's a dumb question. You don't need that question. Tiger Woods is playing really great golf again right before the Masters. That's enough. It's going to be enough to drive television ratings. The Masters is the most beautiful tournament to watch.
It is.
And now you've got Tiger in the mix. Of course, if he plays well, it'll drive ratings even better. If we could get a Tiger Rory McIlroy twosome at some point during the course of the later rounds, it would be fantastic. It would be even better than Tiger and Phil. Enough. Stop asking dumb questions. We don't need that. This is a great story.
It is. Tiger looks like he's back. I don't really have another comment beyond that. But no, it's something I did want to bring up because it looks like he's primed to maybe make a little second half run. And, he's one tournament win behind Jack, and he's still 4 Masters behind him, or 4 majors behind him. He looks like he still may have a chance.
Well, Jack didn't win the 72nd tournament, which is what Tiger just did, until he was well into his 40s. So maybe that record is over. But yeah, if he's in contention at the Masters, I don't even think he has to win. If he's in contention the last day, that's a big momentum swing for him, and it's a big story for golf going into the major season.
I disagree only in the sense of I think if he doesn't win it, you're going to hear people who are making the claim that you're making, which is that he's not back. And maybe it is because of something that he did. Now, if some other golfer goes out and just destroys Augusta and there's nothing no other golfer could have done, then, yeah, you have a point. You can make the claims under normal circumstances. Tiger would have won had it not been for X. But if he goes out there and he's in contention and he misses some putts or shanks a shot or something, then you're going to kind of have to wonder. I think Tiger needs this for him going forward. It's the tournament that he loves. It's set up for his eye well. He really needs to win this tournament.
And look, I disagree with you in one way about this. I feel like Tiger doesn't need to be where he was when he was at his best. He just needs to be good. We just need to have Tiger Woods in contention regularly at majors. We don't need him to win every one. We just need to have him in contention. And, the circumstance in which I think he would really lose this momentum is if he goes out and plays really poorly. If he misses the cut, if he ends up 12 strokes down at the end of and it's not because one person had a great game, it's because he just didn't play particularly well, then I do think that hurts him. But if, imagine that Tiger is, 5 shots out of the lead on the last day, and he starts that thing that he always does where he starts coming back, and whoever, let's say McIlroy's ahead of him, and McIlroy ends up beating him by a stroke or two, that's still a great story for Tiger, and it's a great story for golf. The headlines or the discussion the next day will be, now we've got a competition between Tiger and somebody good again. And we never really had that. If you could get a sustained competition between Tiger and Rory McIlroy, that would be fantastic for golf.
It would. It'll be what they thought Garcia would have been.
Yeah, before it became clear that he couldn't close.
No. Speaking of people who can't close right now, the Miami Heat look pedestrian at best right now.
Yeah, they have not been looking good lately.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're still in second place in the East, but they're now, much further. They're considerably further behind Chicago. I don't know that they look like world beaters. They got schooled by the Oklahoma City Thunder the other night, and not just outshot like we've all talked about how the Thunder can do, but the Thunder shut them down. Kevin Durant turned into a defensive beast as well as an offensive beast. They do not look good.
No, and I believe they lost tonight by double digits.
They're 7-3 in the last 10, though. Let's not write them off.
All of a sudden, they've had a case of the turnovers. They had 20 turnovers against Oklahoma City. I think they had like 15 today. Every team has this. It's a shortened season. At some point, your brain's going to detach a little bit. We'll talk about this in a second, but it says a lot about the Hawks, who played a back-to-back-to-back, then at the end of that played a quadruple overtime. The seasons kind of has a little bit of a weird quirk to it, and I'm not too upset with like if the Heat don't perform in a couple games here or there.
Yeah, and this will be, there's always these little mini stories about the Heat or the Bulls or the Thunder or whatever. The only thing that matters about the Heat, we've been saying this all season, is what happens when the playoff starts. Mm-hmm. As long as they're in the top couple of slots at the end of the season and they can have, mostly home series, especially in the early rounds where there's a danger something weird will happen, then I think the only thing that'll matter is whether or not they can play well. Orlando is now in the third spot. The Sixers have dropped significantly. In fact, the only reason that the Hawks aren't already ahead of the Sixers in the standings is that they haven't played quite as well. They played as many games. I don't even understand why they're not. I'm sitting here looking at I guess it's just a divisional question because the Hawks are behind the Magic. But right now, the 76ers don't look great. Do you think the Hawks win the other night in quadruple overtime, third longest NBA game of all time? Do you think that is any kind of an indication of how the Hawks are going to do in the postseason?
Joe Johnson's playing good.
Yeah,
now Johnson's playing good. He's healthy, which apparently was not the case earlier in the season, maybe a little bit in last season. Josh Smith is playing good. When you have guys who know roles, that's important. I think for a while the Hawks kind of hadn't had that. I think for whatever reason the Hawks kind of felt like Horford does this. Their roles weren't good and didn't mesh well. I don't know what to make of the Hawks. They're 30-20. I know they're good. I just don't know how good. But nothing on that team makes me think that they can compete with the Heat or with the Bulls. So I'm not really sure. I don't know what I'm looking at when I see the Hawks. Like when I see the Knicks, I see upside because of who they have. I know Amari's out right now, but they've got Carmelo. Linsanity has not played very well recently. And Mike Woodson is committed to defense. But I feel like that team's upside is higher than the Hawks because if you have Amari healthy,
not this season.
Carmelo,
not this season.
What do you mean?
Their upside is not higher this season.
No, I think the Knicks' upside is higher this season.
I think they're going to play the Bulls in the first round, dude.
I understand that, but if you're the Bulls, would you rather play the Knicks or the Hawks?
The Knicks every day, all day?
No. I do not want to play a team that has Amari Stoudemire and Carmelo Anthony.
I thought Amari's out for the season.
Huh?
I thought Amari's out for the season. Am I wrong
No,
about that?
He's out indefinitely. They're just trying to figure out what's up with the bulge in his back. That doesn't mean he won't.
I have one of those bulging discs. It's not fun.
Well, I got a bulging disc. Ow!
Oh, nice. Look, everyone who is not a longtime Atlanta Hawk fan can shut up about whether or not the Hawks are good. They do this all the time. They make a run. The national media shines a light on them for a second and goes, oh, look at the Hawks. They're really good. If Joe Johnson shows up in this year's playoffs, that will be the first time he has ever showed up in the playoffs as a Hawk. If Josh Smith can continue this level of effort, it will be the first time that has ever happened as a Hawk. They break our hearts. This is what they do. Right now, they are slated in the playoffs to play Orlando. If the playoffs started tonight, they would lose that series. I await the Hawks showing me they have a heart, and I await Joe Johnson showing me that he can show up in the playoffs. It's never happened before. I've never seen it. I refuse to believe in it until it happens.
I think they could beat Orlando just because of there's something about the way the Hawks match up with them, I think.
The Hawks are 14-13 on the road.
Sure.
And they are in the bottom half of the playoff rankings.
That's fine. All right, I want to talk about the ceiling. If you look at the rosters comparatively, you'd rather have the Knicks roster as opposed to the Heat's roster. I'm sorry, the Hawks roster. I'd rather have Carmelo, a healthy Stoudemire, Chandler in the middle, JR off the bench, Shumpert off the bench, Linsanity, whatever he might be, JR Fields. When I say the ceiling for the Knicks is higher, they have a better superstar player than the Atlanta Hawks. They also probably have a better number 2 player in Amari Stoudemire. They have better talent off the bench with J.R. Smith and Shumpert. I can really see the New York Knicks beating the Chicago Bulls because of the level of talent that they have. They may not have played up to par, but they've got more talent. You could understand a scenario in which the New York Knicks make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I can't imagine a scenario in which the Hawks do that because the Hawks only have 2 players you truly care about.
Yeah, well, look, the only reason that you say that is that when you list those players individually, they sound like great players. I'm unconvinced that Amari is a great player anymore. Let's see. His injury now is kind of evidence of where he's at. I'm unconvinced that Carmelo Anthony can play at a high level within this particular cast of characters. He's certainly not playing very well this year. If you list that list of Knicks players and you say how great they are, your evaluation is really based on things they've done in previous seasons and not things they've done in this season, whereas Joe Johnson's finally playing well. Josh Smith has had arguably the best season of his career.
Sure.
Teague is playing a lot better than he has before, partially because he's been given a chance to play on a consistent basis. If Horford comes back and gives us any kind of contribution, they've got a bit of depth. You're not going to hear me making arguments for the Hawks, but to say that the Knicks are going to beat the Bulls, that they have a real shot, I have a hard time believing that. I just feel like you're right. Carmelo can light up for an evening, but can he play well with that cast of characters? Can they play well as a team?
The thing is that you've got Mike Woodson coaching, and this sounds funny, he runs an offense that's built around a superstar. When he was here in Atlanta, it was Joe Johnson in the fourth quarter, everybody get out the way. And that, to some extent, that's what it is now. And look at the Knicks since, D'Antoni was fired. I think they've lost maybe 1 game or something like that.
They've played a lot better since D'Antoni was fired, but you're really not going to hold Mike Woodson's record as a coach in the playoffs or late in the season up to me as an offensive scheme. We had no offensive scheme at all. You're right that he took a player in isolation and tried to get him to play. That is a losing strategy. especially when the player is Carmelo Anthony in the midst of one of the worst seasons of his career, and you are talking about one of the best defensive teams in the league in the team of the Chicago Bulls. That is not a winning strategy. It destroyed me to watch Woodson never call plays that were successful more than once. We couldn't pick and roll. We couldn't do anything. That is not a recipe for winning.
Here's what I'm going to say. If you look at the players on each team
individually, based on their past performance.
If you look at the players, the Knicks have the better superstar. I think that goes without saying.
He's the better. Okay, yeah, you're right. Carmelo Anthony's better than Joe Johnson. That's true.
Yes. My argument is that talent means you have a higher ceiling. The Hawks are what the Hawks are. They're not going to play any better than what they're playing. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Okay. But if the names that I listed for the New York Knicks all of a sudden started playing like the names you know them to be, would they not be better than what they are?
Well, I don't know them to be that. You're right. If all the players for the Knicks started playing as well as they have in the past, then they'd be a fantastic team. But I don't think Stoudemire is ever going to play that well again. I don't think that Carmelo is capable of playing well in a system like this or well with this cast of characters in a way that empowers them to play well, and the big guy in the middle is not playing it remotely like he was last year. They are not built as a team to play well against a team in the Bulls that, say what you want, plays as a team.
They do play as a team.
I mean, the talent thing...
I have not made the argument that the Knicks beat the Bulls.
Yes, you have. You said they've got a real shot at it. You said you can see that...
Yes, a real shot at it. They've got a better shot than the Hawks.
That's just wrong.
You think that if the New York Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks met in a 7-game series, the Hawks would win?
No.
Okay.
We're talking about. No,
it
doesn't. I don't think the Knicks have any shot to beat the Bulls.
Wait,
okay. I think the Hawks could play the look. The Hawks could play the kind of series against the Bulls that they've played against the Celtics in the past, and that is to make that a 7-game series. I think ultimately they'll lose because Joe Johnson has no heart, but the Knicks have no shot.
This makes no sense. You literally just said 5 seconds ago that the New York Knicks will beat the Atlanta Hawks in a 7-game series.
No, I didn't.
Yes, I did. I actually, you said the Knicks would win.
I said the Bulls would win.
No. Here's my question. If the Knicks played the Hawks...
Oh. No, the Hawks would win that series. They would win that series they would win that series in 5 games.
Really?
Yeah.
You're insane.
The Knicks are not. Look, dude. Look at the way they've been playing.
Okay, no.
The Knicks are 500 basketball.
Hey, can you look and see how many games
11 points higher than that? What?
How many games are left for the season? We need to make a bet on this.
Right now, it depends on which team you're talking about, but there have been roughly 51 games played, so about 11 games left.
How many games behind are the Knicks than the Hawks? Or who? You know what I'm saying?
The Knicks are 25-25. The Hawks are 30-20, so they're 5 games behind.
No, it's not enough games to make that. I was going to make the bet that the Knicks will catch the Hawks, but
that's not going to happen.
There aren't enough games.
Look, if Stoudemire is out, I think there's a real chance that New York will fall out of the playoffs. They are as close to the Hawks as they are from being out of the playoffs.
How many games are already on the next season?
They are 5 games up on Milwaukee.
Yeah, I don't think Milwaukee's there. I ain't worried about that.
Now, I mean, I agree with you. I think the Knicks are probably going to end up in the 8th seed where they will get housed. Look, when the playoffs come around and the Knicks are playing the Bulls,
who are the Hawks scheduled to play?
Right now, they're scheduled to play the Magic. I mean, if you're thinking about making a bet about who wins the more games in the first round, that's a terrible bet because the Hawks are playing Orlando, and the Knicks are playing a much better team. You're screwed on that bet. The Bulls are going to destroy the Knicks.
Okay, all right. Over under 1.5 wins for the Knicks in the playoffs. I take the over.
I will take the under as long as Stoudemire is still out.
No, come on.
I mean, that is a big piece. If
Stoudemire's out, I'm still taking the over.
Okay. We'll see. We will see what happens when the playoffs roll around. We have talked virtually nothing at all about the Western Conference, where my San Antonio Spurs who just put a designation on Duncan, did not play old, which is one of the funniest things ever. And Duncan still managed to get a technical in that game. They are playing real well. The Lakers are all of a sudden much better than they were. They're in the third seed, and so they're playing a lot better than they were, although they periodically look terrible. Is anyone showing you anything in the West to indicate that the Thunder aren't going to run away with it?
No.
I wish I could say I thought the Spurs were had a shot to beat them. I really don't think that.
No, I don't think the Lakers can.
I mean, Oklahoma City's going to run roughshod over Denver.
Yeah.
They're going to, I think Oklahoma City will run roughshod over Dallas. The Clippers are an interesting matchup for them, but I think they'll still run roughshod over the Clippers. And then I think the Lakers always have a chance against anyone, but I don't think they have a good chance this year against Oklahoma City. The Spurs have a chance against Oklahoma City, but it's not a great chance.
They got a chance. I just don't know what that chance is.
All of a sudden, I'm starting to believe in the Thunder, and I'm starting to believe in them as a possible NBA champion.
Yeah. I'll stick with the Heat. I'm not going to be a prisoner of the moment.
No, I mean, I didn't say I'm there. I said I'm closer. I still am calling the Heat. All right, well, that was our podcast for this week. We're going to do this more regularly now, especially as things start really getting heated up. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming out, and we're going to be doing what we did with the last major podcast, which is splitting this one up into smaller segments. Mm-hmm. So, tell your friends.
And don't forget to wear your hoodies.
That's right, wear your hoodies. And we will see you next week.
All right.